Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're diving deep into an emotional storm. Just when Quan and Tu Lok thought their love had finally found peace under the gourd trellis, a mysterious woman from Quan's past suddenly appears with a shocking secret that could shatter their newly rebuilt family. Will their love survive this heartbreaking revelation? If you're loving this emotional roller coaster, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. The night air was cool and fragrant with the scent of wet earth and young gourd leaves. Under the newly repaired trellis, soft golden light from the oil lamp spilled across the wooden bench where Quan sat with Tu Lok nestled in his lap. Their baby slept peacefully between them, wrapped in a thin blanket, his tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Quan's strong arms encircled his wife, one hand gently stroking her back while the other rested protectively over their son. "I still can't believe we're here," Tu Lok whispered, her cheek pressed against Quan's chest. Her voice was soft, tired, but full of wonder. "After everything, the flood, the pain, the fear, we have him, and you, and even Mother is with us now." Quan smiled, lowering his head to press a slow, tender kiss to her forehead. His lips lingered, warm and reassuring. "You are my home, Lok. Every scar we carry only makes this moment sweeter." He tilted her chin up gently, their eyes meeting in the moonlight filtering through the green canopy. The kiss that followed was unhurried, deep, and filled with quiet passion, the kind that spoke of survival, gratitude, and a love that had grown stronger through every trial. Tu Lok's fingers curled into his shirt as she melted against him, the world fading until only the warmth of his mouth and the steady beat of his heart remained. From a short distance away, Mrs. Nguyen Thi Huang watched them with a soft smile. She no longer felt like an outsider. The proud businesswoman who once valued empires and billions now found joy in simple things. The laughter of her grandson, the way her son looked at his wife as if she were the only light in his world. The peaceful moment shattered with the low rumble of a car engine approaching on the village road. Headlights swept across the yard, cutting through the darkness like an unwelcome memory. Quan lifted his head, frowning slightly. "Who could that be at this hour?" he murmured, helping Tu Lok to sit up properly before standing. The car stopped at the edge of the property. A woman stepped out, elegant, slender, dressed in a simple but expensive white dress that glowed under the moonlight. Her long hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. Even from afar, her beauty was striking, almost ethereal, like a figure from a half-forgotten dream. Quan froze. His body went rigid. "Lan An." The name slipped from his lips before he could stop it. Tu Lok's heart skipped. She stood slowly, one hand instinctively cradling their baby closer to her chest. Mrs. Huang appeared beside them, her face tightening with recognition. The woman, Lan An, walked forward with hesitant steps, her eyes locked on Quan. Tears shimmered on her lashes as she stopped a few meters away under the shadow of the gourd trellis. "Quan, it's really you," she said, her voice trembling but gentle, almost melodic. "I've been searching for so long." Tu Lok felt a cold wave wash over her. She glanced at her husband, searching his face. Quan looked stunned, but there was no guilt in his eyes, only surprise and a trace of old sadness. "Lan An," he said quietly, stepping slightly in front of his wife and child as if to shield them. "What are you doing here? After all these years?" Lan An's gaze shifted to Tu Lok, then to the tiny bundle in her arms. A soft, bittersweet smile touched her lips. "I heard about the flood, about your baby. I didn't come to cause pain. I needed to see you one last time." Mrs. Huang stepped forward, her voice firm but not unkind. This is not the time, child. My son has a family now, a wife and a child he loves more than anything. Lanan nodded, but her eyes never left Quan. I know, and I'm happy for you, truly, but there are things I never got to tell you before you left 3 years ago. Her voice cracked gently. Things that changed everything. Quan's jaw tightened. He reached back and took Tiulak's hand, squeezing it reassuringly. Whatever it is, we can talk tomorrow. My wife is still recovering. Our son needs rest. But Lanan shook her head, stepping closer. Moonlight illuminated the delicate lines of her face, the quiet sorrow in her eyes. I was pregnant, Quan. When you left, I was carrying your child. The words hung in the air like fragile leaves caught in a sudden wind. Tiolak's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around Quan's hand until her knuckles turned white. The baby stirred slightly in her arms, letting out a small, sleepy sound. Quan stared at Lanan, his expression shifting from shock to confusion. That's not possible, he said, voice low and steady. Lanan, you know we never crossed that line. I respected you too much. I left because my mother pressured me, but there was never a child. Lanan's tears fell freely now. She reached into her bag with trembling hands and pulled out an old photograph, faded but clear. It showed the two of them years ago, smiling under city lights, her hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. The doctor confirmed it 2 weeks after you disappeared. I was terrified. I tried to find you, but your mother, she made sure I couldn't. Mrs. Huang's face paled. She opened her mouth, then closed it, the weight of her past actions pressing down on her once more. Tiulak felt the ground tilt beneath her. Her body, still healing from birth, ached with sudden exhaustion. Yet she lifted her chin, her voice soft but steady. If this is true, why come now? Why not earlier? Lanan looked at her with genuine gentleness. There was no malice in her eyes, only deep, quiet pain. Because I lost the baby, Tiulak, a few months later. I was alone, grieving, and I thought Quan had chosen a new life. I didn't want to ruin his happiness, but now... She placed a hand over her abdomen, her voice dropping to a whisper. Now the doctors say I don't have much time. Cancer, stage 4. I just wanted him to know the truth before it's too late. I wanted to see the man I once loved and meet the family he built. Silence enveloped the gourd trellis. The leaves rustled softly overhead, as if the vines themselves were listening, offering quiet comfort. Quan turned to Tiolak, cupping her face with both hands. His thumbs brushed away the tears she didn't realize had fallen. Lak, look at me, he whispered, his voice warm and fierce with love. I swear on our son's life, there was never a child. I never lied to you. You are my only love, my only future. He leaned in and kissed her, slow, deep, and full of reassurance. It was not passionate in front of others, but tender, a promise sealed under the same trellis where their love had first blossomed. Tiolak clung to him, drawing strength from his warmth, even as doubt and compassion warred in her heart. Mrs. Huang stepped closer to Lanan, her usual commanding presence softened by regret. If what you say is true, we will help you. Medical care, support, whatever you need. But my son's family comes first. We have fought too hard for this peace. Lanan nodded, wiping her tears. I understand. I don't want to take anything from you. I only wanted closure, and maybe if it's possible to see the child you have now, just once. The baby let out a small cry as if sensing the heavy emotions around him. Tiulak instinctively rocked him, her maternal instinct overriding everything else. Quan wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close while keeping a respectful distance from Lanan. Come inside. Quan said finally, his voice gentle yet guarded. It's late. We can talk more tomorrow when everyone is rested. But know this, my heart belongs here, with them. As they walked toward the house, the gourd trellis stood silently behind them, its fresh green shoots glowing faintly in the moonlight. Healing had begun once more, but new shadows had fallen across their fragile happiness. Tieu Lac leaned heavily against Quan as they entered the small bedroom. He helped her lie down, carefully placing their son beside her before pulling the blanket over them both. His large hand stroked her hair with infinite tenderness. "Sleep, my love," he murmured, pressing one last kiss to her lips. Soft, lingering, filled with all the words he couldn't say in front of others. "I am yours, only yours. Tomorrow we will face this together like we always have." Tieu Lac nodded, but as Quan turned off the lamp and lay down beside her, she couldn't stop the quiet tears that slipped down her cheeks. Outside, the faint sound of Lanan's car engine starting again echoed in the night. The visitor had come, and with her, questions that threatened to test every bond they had so carefully rebuilt. The first light of dawn painted the eastern sky in soft hues of pink and gold, but inside the small village house, sleep had been restless. Tieu Lac lay curled against Quan's chest, their baby nestled safely between them. Even in sleep, Quan's arm remained protectively around her, his breathing steady and warm against her hair. Yet Tieu Lac's mind refused to rest. The words Lan An had spoken under the gourd trellis echoed endlessly. "I was pregnant, your child." She shifted slightly and Quan woke instantly, his dark eyes searching hers with gentle concern. "Bad dreams?" he whispered, voice husky from lack of sleep. Without waiting for an answer, he leaned down and captured her lips in a slow, reassuring kiss. It was tender at first, then deepened with quiet hunger, the kind that reminded her she was his entire world. His hand slid to the small of her back, pulling her closer as if he could shield her from every shadow. When they parted, Tieu Lac's breath trembled. "I believe you, An," she said softly, "but it still hurts, knowing someone else once held your heart." Quan rested his forehead against hers, their baby's tiny hand brushing against his chest. "No one ever held my heart, Lac, not the way you do. Lan An was a chapter from a different life, one my mother tried to write for me. You are the story I chose. You are the home I fought the flood for." He kissed her again, deeper this time, pouring every ounce of love into the moment until Tieu Lac felt the ache in her chest ease just a little. A soft knock interrupted them. Mrs. Nguyen Thi Huang stood in the doorway looking unusually tired but determined. Lan An called early this morning. She's staying at the small guest house near the commune. She wants to talk properly. I think we should meet her together. Tieu Lac nodded, though her body still ached from childbirth. "For closure," she agreed quietly. By mid-morning, the three of them, Quan, Tieu Lac carrying their son in a soft sling, and Mrs. Huang, walked toward the guest house. The air was fresh after last night's light rain, and the path was lined with recovering green. Quan kept one arm around Tieu Lac's waist, supporting her steps with the same effortless strength he had shown during the flood. Lan An was waiting under a flowering frangipani tree, looking even more fragile in daylight. Her elegant dress had been replaced by simple clothes, and dark circles shadowed her beautiful eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice gentle. She looked at the baby with genuine warmth. "He's beautiful, just like his father." The conversation began carefully. Lan An shared old letters, medical records from 3 years ago, and photos that proved she had indeed been pregnant. But as Quan examined them, his expression remained calm. "I never touched you that way, Lan An," he said firmly but kindly. "We kissed, we held hands, but I was always clear about waiting until marriage. When my mother pressured me to end things, I left. If you were pregnant, it wasn't mine. Lanan's shoulders trembled. Fresh tears slipped down her cheeks. I was scared and alone. I wanted it to be yours so badly that I convinced myself it was. The real father disappeared when he found out. I lost the baby at 5 months. The grief consumed me. She looked at Tu Lac with raw honesty. I didn't come here to claim anything. I came because the cancer is real. Stage 4. The doctors in Hanoi gave me 3 to 6 months. I just wanted to see Quan one last time and apologize for holding on to a lie for so long. Silence fell. Tu Lac felt a wave of compassion wash over her pain. She stepped forward despite the protest in her healing body and took Lanan's cold hands in hers. "I'm sorry for what you've suffered," she whispered. "No woman should face that alone." Mrs. Huang, standing a little apart, finally spoke, her voice thick with regret. "I was the one who drove you away, Lanan. I thought money and status would protect my son. I was wrong about so many things." She reached into her bag and handed Lanan an envelope. "This is for your treatment. The best hospital in Ho Chi Minh City. No conditions. Just let us help you find peace." Lanan stared at the envelope, tears flowing freely. "I don't deserve this." "You deserve kindness," Quan said quietly. "We all do." As they walked back home together, the mood was heavy but strangely lighter. Quan carried Tu Lac part of the way when her steps faltered, whispering loving words against her ear. "You are the most compassionate woman I know. That's why I fall in love with you more every single day." Under the gourd trellis that afternoon, they found a moment of peace. Quan sat on the wide bench and pulled Tu Lac onto his lap, their baby sleeping soundly between them once more. Sunlight filtered through the fresh green leaves, casting golden patterns across their faces. He kissed her slowly, reverently, first her forehead, then her eyelids, then her lips. The kiss grew deeper, filled with passion tempered by tenderness. His hands cradled her with infinite care, mindful of her still healing body. "You're glowing, Lac," he murmured against her mouth. "Even after everything, you shine brighter than the sun on these leaves." Tu Lac smiled through happy tears, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. "Because you carry me on. Through floods, through storms of the heart, you always carry me." Their lips met again in a long, soul-stirring kiss. The world narrowed to the warmth of his embrace, the sweet scent of gourd flowers, and the steady heartbeat of their child. For a precious while, the shadows of the past felt distant, but peace was fragile. That evening, as Tu Lac nursed their son, the baby suddenly began struggling. His tiny chest heaved, breaths coming too fast and shallow. The portable oxygen monitor started beeping frantically. Panic surged through her. Quick!" she cried. Quan rushed in, scooping the baby up while Tu Lac clutched her chest in fear. Mrs. Huang immediately called the provincial hospital. The stress of the past 24 hours had taken its toll on Tu Lac's milk supply and the baby's fragile system. They raced to the hospital once again, Quan driving, this time with Lanan following in her own car, refusing to be left behind. In the neonatal ward, under harsh fluorescent lights, doctors worked quickly. Phototherapy lights glowed over the tiny incubator as the baby received extra oxygen. Tu Lac sat beside the incubator, tears streaming down her face. Quan knelt in front of her, cupping her cheeks. "He's going to be okay," he promised, voice steady. "Just like you were strong in the flood, we will be strong now." He pulled her into his arms right there in the hospital corridor, kissing her temple, her wet cheeks, then her lips, soft, lingering, giving her strength. I love you more than yesterday, Luck. And less than tomorrow, she whispered back, clinging to him. Lan stood quietly at the end of the corridor, watching them. When Mrs. Huang approached her, she spoke with quiet sincerity. Seeing them together, I understand now why he chose this life. I'm glad he found her. Hours later, the doctor emerged with good news. The baby's condition had stabilized. He would need careful monitoring for a few more days, but the crisis had passed. As night fell, the family gathered in the quiet hospital room. Quan held Tu Lok close on the narrow bed while she rested her head on his shoulder. Their baby slept peacefully in the incubator nearby. Mrs. Huang sat beside Lan, the two women talking in low voices about treatment plans and second chances. Lan looked at Quan one last time. Thank you for letting me see the truth. I'm going to fight this illness, and I won't disturb your happiness again. Quan nodded, his arm tightening around Tu Lok. Take care of yourself, Lan, and remember, you're not alone anymore. Later, when the hospital lights dimmed, Quan carried Tu Lok to a small balcony overlooking the garden. The moon hung high, silver light washing over them. He held her gently against his chest, their bodies fitting perfectly together despite the exhaustion of the day. In the quiet night, he kissed her with renewed passion, slow, deep, and full of forever. His hands roamed tenderly over her back, careful and loving. You amaze me every single day, he breathed between kisses. The way you forgave, the way you love. You are my miracle, Tu Lok. She kissed him back with equal emotion, her fingers threading through his hair. The kiss spoke of trust rebuilt, love reaffirmed, and a future they would protect together. When they finally returned inside, Mrs. Huang was rocking the baby gently. She looked up with a soft smile. Go rest, you two. I'll watch over him tonight. As Quan and Tu Lok lay down together in the small hospital bed, wrapped in each other's arms, a fragile but beautiful peace settled over them. The gourd trellis waited at home, stronger now, just like their family. Yet as sleep claimed them, Tu Lok's phone lit up with a single message from an unknown number. Thank you for today. There's one more thing I need to tell you about the past. Something even Quan doesn't know. Meet me tomorrow, alone. The screen faded to black, leaving only the soft beeping of the monitor and the quiet breathing of their son. After surviving the devastating flood and the emotional journey of early parenthood, Quan and Tu Lok finally find fragile peace under their beloved gourd trellis. Their happiness, however, is suddenly disrupted when Lan, a beautiful woman from Quan's past, appears one quiet night with a shocking revelation. She claims she was pregnant with his child 3 years ago. Heartbreak, doubt, and compassion collide as old wounds reopen. While Tu Lok struggles with pain and insecurity, Quan fights to prove his unwavering love. Mrs. Huang steps up with sincere redemption, offering support to the woman she once drove away. Amid tender moments, passionate kisses, and tearful forgiveness, the family faces another crisis when their premature baby's health deteriorates once again. Will their hard-earned love survive this unexpected storm from the past? A touching tale of trust, sacrifice, and the healing power of forgiveness.